Hi, I'm Mike Overly, author of the Guitar Encyclopedia. Welcome back to the Guitar Forum. Tonight, I would like to welcome guitar players of all types and styles of guitar, not just the cliched, shall we say, heavy metal type pentatonic power chord, long-haired headbanging dude, although there's a lot of them, and that's all cool too. And on other guitar forums, we have discussed those items. But I thought it was very important for us to broaden the scope, actually, of what the Guitar Encyclopedia is actually about, and that is a study of the guitar, and look at some of its more fundamental characteristics, the guitar, and how that lends itself to music. One of the most important concepts of learning the guitar, and what a lot of beginning methods don't get across, is that the horizontal, the east and west view of the guitar, which in fact are actually your strings, is really the most fundamental and important beginning that you can have on your guitar. And so we always ask a beginning student, how many strings are there on the guitar? And even though that seems like a childish question, I've got the wrong answer sometimes. And the answer is 6 on a normal standard guitar. Now, of course, there's 12-string guitars and ukuleles that have 4 strings and many other stringed instruments, but the basic standard guitar contains 6 strings. And the 6th string is the big string, and the 1st string is the thin string. Now, this horizontal grouping of the letters, in fact, is what organizes the guitar in a way that the piano is organized. In a horizontal way, if we could follow me over to the board here, the piano, what makes the piano actually easy to understand is that the piano has 2 black keys and 3 black keys, and it then shows us that we have the letters C, D, E, F, G, A, B, and then we'll be back to C again. And we can see that this is a horizontal view, east and west view, of really what we might consider, if we were playing the guitar, as being one horizontal string. Now, if you really thought now about just one string on your guitar, let's say that's going to be the 6th string, the big string, and we always put strings in circled numbers. Now, if we were going to consider this 6th string, E string actually, for those of you who want to tune up and play along out there, this E string can then also be divided into what we're going to talk about tonight, octaves. Now, if we say that on one end of our guitar we have what we call the nut, which is close to the keys and where the strings cross over, where they end the fretboard, you call that the nut. And if we then go to the 12th fret of the guitar, which is in fact the middle of the bridge. Now, this is the bridge back here, so between the nut and the bridge is what we call the string's length. Now, when we divide this string in half at the 12th fret, then this is in fact what we call the octave. Now, having said that, it's more easily heard that when we play the 6th string open and we go to the 12th fret of the 6th string, it's the same letter E, but it's 1 octave higher. Now, each string could then be divided in octaves from open string to the 12th fret. 5th string is A. D to D on the 4th string, G to G on the 3rd string, B to B on the 2nd string, and E to E on the 1st string. So now what we've done is we've taken the guitar's 1 string and we've divided that string in half, and we have created the octave. Now, that simplistic view of the guitar that we call horizontal, because of the string grouping of the 6 strings, 5, 6. And now when we place the nut, we have 6 strings, 6th string being this big string, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Now going back to the picture that we just saw, what you now have to understand, those of you who do play the piano or the flute or trumpet or any monophonic instrument, meaning that you play one note at a time in a horizontal fashion, you can now understand that the guitar is in fact like looking at 6 pianos. There's these 6 horizontal pianos, and you're looking at 6 keyboards at one time. Now, when we now divide the horizontal strings with now our new angle word, tonight's topic is angles, and we just had horizontal, which are represented by the strings. Our next angle word is vertical. The first vertical actually that we've already seen is the nut. So we have our 6 horizontal strings and we have our vertical nut and actually the vertical bridge. And when we take that string length and divide it at the 12th fret, we create the octave, doubled the frequency. Now we're going to draw the vertical frets. And we have position markers on the guitar, and the position markers locate where you are on your fretboard. A position marker at the 3rd fret, the 5th fret, the 7th fret, the 9th fret, and on the 12th fret we have double frets, or double dots, double dot markers, position markers. When we put those position markers then on our fretboard at 3, 5, 7, 9, and 12, we have now created the guitar's fretboard, which is created by what 2 angles? Horizontal and vertical. Now these 2 angles, horizontal strings and vertical frets, are then intersected by what we would call the diagonal. And it's from the diagonal that we create the next octave. Now it is possible to view, as we said, that a letter or pitch at the nut, for example, the 6th string, open string, or at the nut, is the letter E, 6th string at the nut. And if we play on the 12th fret of the 6th string, the letter is also E. However, one of those E notes was low and one was high, and that is what we call the difference of an octave. Now, this view of octaves on the fretboard are horizontal relationships. And as we said, if you were sitting down and playing this on a piano, you would just play horizontally on one string, and then you go to this next string and you play on this piano horizontally, and then you go on the next string. I mean, it's like looking at 6 pianos. No wonder the guitar is so out of control. And you know, it takes a lifetime to try to get anything together on this instrument. It's so insane. Now, one of the cool things about the guitar fretboard, though, is of course now we have this grid that we can now view in terms of patterns. And these patterns are very important, as we've learned from games from our childhood, like checkers and chess, to a number of ideas that we can learn and remember by thinking about their patterns. Now, all we will begin to do, and what I do in the Guitar Encyclopedia, is show and label, give names to, all these myriad of patterns, thousands of patterns that you can put on that fretboard and give them names, and then put them all together like a vocabulary and a language and end up playing music, which is great fun. So, what we have seen so far is we've created the octave. Now this octave is going on the 6th string at the nut E to the 12th fret of the 6th string E, an octave higher. However, this horizontal octave that we've created can also be thought of as what we call in music half steps. Half steps is the smallest interval that we know in our Western tradition music, and this creates what we call 1 fret on the guitar. If I was on the 5th fret and go up 1 fret to the 6th fret, we would call that a half step. Now you can go a half step higher or a half step lower. And these are called intervals, in fact. But the point being that there are 12 frets, or 12 half steps, that we divide this octave into. Imagine that this octave is really a foot, like on a ruler, and it's a foot on a ruler, and you're going to divide this into 12 inches. Well, each one of those inches would be a half step, and we have 12 half steps in music. So what we're saying is that if we are at the nut, and the nut in fact is 0 or open, we would then say that we are going open or nut, then the 1st fret, 2nd fret, our dot shows us it's the 3rd fret, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, and as we said, 12 frets higher or 12 half steps higher, we have what we call the octave. So 12 frets or 12 half steps apart from any two letters creates the octave. Now, of course, we can divide this octave into its various other lettered parts, 7 letters of the musical alphabet, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, but for now we'll just deal with our E notes that we've placed on our horizontal strings on the vertical frets. 6th string E, 6th string 12th fret, its octave higher, E. Now, the point we're making, and here's where I'm really going to, if any of you people are out there watching this show and you actually are guitar players and you've spent time on your fretboard and you've studied it and you've looked at it and you've noticed things, one of the things that's really interesting to notice is that part of the difficulty of the guitar is not only that it's 6 keyboards, but that these 6 keyboards are actually all starting on different notes. So this creates this winding path through this octave chart that says I can find E at the nut and E to the 12th fret by counting as we did before, open 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 and get to E, but I can also go 1, 2, 3, 4, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 and end up actually on the 4th string, 2nd fret, and that is in fact 12 frets higher than the E at the nut. The point that I'm making now is that this note that is on the 6th string at the nut, low E, and the horizontal octave E note that's on the 12th fret can now be played in our 3rd angle, diagonal. So when we take the horizontal strings and the vertical frets, it creates the most important view of the guitar fretboard, and that is of the diagonal. And now we can see that if I play the 6th string E, and I now play the 2nd fret of the 4th string, that is also E, and that E is an octave higher, therefore the 12th fret E and the 2nd fret of the 4th string E have the same pitch. E on the 12th fret of the 6th string, E on the 2nd fret of the 4th string. So this multiple positioning of letters and pitches and tones and octaves on the fretboard is in fact diagonally organized. Now this is a point that most guitarists don't see clearly, and because of that they tend to play more in what people call the box positioning. I'm going to play in the box, specifically a minor pentatonic scale where they go, I'm in this box. Now if I move out of that box, I'm in a new vertical box. But that vertical box concept has no horizontal, shall we say, flow, which in fact is diagonal by combining horizontal and vertical and creating these diagonal octaves. So therefore, the same octave that we get horizontally at the nut to the 12th fret, we now create from the nut diagonally to the 2nd fret of the 4th string. Now, this octave of E that is found on the 2nd fret or the 12th fret also has its octave. And its octave is located on the opposite diagonal. Here we'd say perhaps a diagonal to the right, and here a diagonal to the left. And what these two diagonals say is we have 3 letter E's, but they're all in different octaves. The 6th string open being the lowest E, the 2nd fret of the 4th string being the octave above that, and now this 1st string open, which is also E, which is an octave above the 4th string E, and in fact now, as you can see vertically from the 6th string nut E to the 1st string nut E, that is 2 octaves. So here's the low E, and here is 2 octaves higher, a higher E, and now the octave E that's in the middle, the 4th string 2nd fret, or the same exact pitch on the 12th fret of the sixth string. Now, this fundamental view that I'm giving you to the guitar today is just that. It is so fundamental that it says that if you understand that there are three angles that you can play on your guitar, that being horizontal like your strings, vertical like your frets, or diagonal like your octaves, it puts a different perspective on how you view the various patterns and shapes and forms that you play on your guitar. Let us continue now with this diagonal principle and show these other octaves. This E octave on the sixth string octave is on the fourth string second fret. Now when we go to the second string fifth fret, we now have created its octave. And in fact, now we find that the E that's on the fifth fret of the second string is the same frequency as the nut E, so therefore these two E's sound of the same frequency or same pitch. These two E's are sounding of the same frequency, and of course we got the low. So now you begin to see that you have this, it looks like Battleship or something. Okay. Here we have E going to E going to E. It's another pattern relationship that we see. So when we have E at the nut, we also have E at the second fret of the fourth string, and now we have the E at the fifth fret of the second string. E, E, E. And then that fifth fret, second string E, has the same frequency as the first string open. E on the second string, E on the first string have the same pitch. E on the second fret of the fourth string has the same pitch as E on the 12th fret of the sixth string. Now, not only can the E, that is the frequency of the second fret of the fourth string, be played there, but it can also be played on the seventh fret of the fifth string. Now, these have the same frequency. So the second fret of the fourth string is E, and now the seventh fret of the fifth string is E. E, E. Now we find then, of course, that we now have that octave relationship, the octave of E to E. Now, when we play the octave of E to E at the 12th fret, we create this octave. And now when we create the E on the third string, we now have created these shapes. Now what we have created is locating the same letter, or the same, sometimes people say notes to mean that, but notes are a whole different symbol. These are just locating letters on your fretboard. The note would be in different places on the staff to designate its octave. In the Guitar Encyclopedia, the method that we use to differentiate between octaves is tones. And now what we find is that we can now see that we have an E located on every string. Sixth string E, fifth, fourth, third, second, and first. And on two of these strings we even had two horizontal E's. So what we're saying is that one of the most important parts of really calling yourself a guitarist would be able to locate any letter rapidly on your guitar. For example, if you want to play that letter as the root note of a scale or a chord, if somebody said, play me an E chord, well, you'd want to know where all those E notes were so that you could build your chord around that E. Finding the letters on your fretboard is essential. And therefore, this method of viewing horizontal octaves and vertical octaves and diagonal octaves sets up a pattern that we can now look at more carefully in its what we now call tones. Now we start off the same way, only this time what we're going to do is we're going to draw our 6 strings, including our nut. And put our fretboard designations on here. And now this time what we're going to do, instead of just putting letters, we're going to put what we call tone numbers. Now tone numbers are merely the numbers of the scale. Whereas now we're saying that if we were in the key of E, as we were looking at the letter E earlier, E would be what we'd call the root note, and the root note is tone 1. So this E note that I'm playing right now is the 6th string open. That is going to be what we call the E tone 1. So the E note that we played at the 6th string at the nut, and then 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1, we are now going to call that tone 1. Now, tone 1's octave is called tone 8. Now, this relationship is the octave 8 when you go do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. When you get from do to do, that's like going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 1, 8. So the octave of 1 is tone 8. And therefore, we learned that if we went to the 12th fret of the 6th string, that we would have the E, and that letter is correct, but the difference between the E at the 6th string open, the low one, and E at the 12th fret, the octave, is that this E is called tone 1, and this 12th fret E is called tone 8. Now, when we understand that part about the octave, we can then show that the E that is on the 4th string, 2nd fret, is tone 8. And therefore, now we can clearly see that this E note on the 4th string is the same frequency as this E note on the 6th string because they're both tone 8s. They're not tone 1s. Now what occurs is that if 1 plus 7 equals its octave 8, then 8 plus 7 equals its octave 15. So tone 1's octave is tone 8. Now tone 8's octave is tone 15, and that's the E at the nut. So here we have an E note at the 6th string. Here we have an E note at the 4th fret, 2nd string. And here we have an E note on the 1st string, and that's tone 15. Now what we find is that when we take this octave E, this gives us tone 15. And so now we have tone 1, tone 8, tone 15, or tone 1, tone 8, tone 15. We still have the same locations diagonally of our E's, but now we can identify which one of these actually sounds the same in frequency. This E is also tone 8. Its octave E is tone 15. And now we have an octave that is the 3rd octave, E. And I guess you would call that tone 22 if you were actually going to do that. And that would be actually the 3rd octave. And that is the only tone up there, as we'll see, that's the 3rd octave. Okay? So, what we have now is tone 1 on the 6th string at the nut. Now we have tone 8 horizontal on the 12th fret. Now I can play diagonal to tone 8 on the 5th string and diagonal to tone 8 on the 4th string. Now, tone 8's octave is 15, so I can have 15 as a 1st string open, 15 on the 2nd string, and 15 on the 9th fret of the 3rd string, and then this tone 22, which is the 3rd octave of E. So here's tone 1E. Now we have tone 8, tone 8, tone 8, tone 15, tone 15, tone 15, and tone 22. And now we can locate rapidly on the fretboard where all the letters are by thinking of our diagonal pattern. So here we now have the, we'll go over here to an E minor 9 chord just to play an E something. Now we just have a little track happening on E minor where I can now show a musical aspect to playing these E notes. Now we have E, which is tone 1. Now, if we go horizontal to the 12th fret of the 6th string, I have the octave of that E. Now that tone 8 E can now be played in two other places on the guitar, on the 7th fret of the 5th string and on the 2nd fret of the 4th string. So these are all tone 8 E's. 12th fret of the 6th string, 7th fret of the 5th string, and the 2nd fret of the 4th string. Now the octave of tone 8 is tone 15, and we have 3 locations for the 15. On the 9th fret of the 3rd string, on the 5th fret of the 2nd string, and on the 1st. And we have 1 location for the 3rd octave E, and that gives you an introduction into what I consider angles on the guitar. They are the horizontal strings, the vertical frets, and the diagonal octaves. And I would like to leave you with a little song in a sort of a Latin vein tonight. And I wish you the best of all good things, and hurry on back to the next Guitar Forum.